What's good, everybody? Injured here, bringing you another in-depth guide. This time, one of my favorite characters in the game, Eva. Alright guys, so we're going to jump right back into it as usual. I love Eva. I think she's one of the funnest characters in the game. Funnest as in her creativity. I think she's one of the characters that has the most character. She's very zany, and her sound clips are funny. I just think she's great. And I hope you guys enjoy learning a little bit about her, as she can be a difficult hero to play. So we're first going to go off into our M1s, and so I'm going to shoot a couple here, and then I'm going to try to explain something to you. So as you see, she has these 4 bullets that come out. You can see them coming out over here by my cursor. And each bullet does a bit of damage. And so you want to be really careful with how you aim. And so there's a sweet spot you can try and get with Eva. So if I aim to the right here a little bit, you'll see I hit with just a couple of the bullets there. So there I only hit 1. I don't know how when I was more to the right I hit 2 somehow. But so I'm only hitting with 1 bullet. So I'm hitting 4 damage. And now if I keep coming over, I'm doing 8 now because I was hitting with 2. Now that one did less because he died. And so you see I did 8 damage that time. Now if you aim pretty dead on, you'll see I'm doing 16 damage now in auto attack. Now the only other person who can do that is Jumong. Personally, I think Jumong's M1 needs to be toned down a little bit because he's got ridiculous range, and he can still do that 16 damage. So she can trade M1s very efficiently. She also has to reload after 3 attacks, and I have no cooldowns on right now. So here, I'll show you. So you do 1, 2, 3, and then you got a little reload period. So you see that you have the 3 over here. So what I like to do then is I like to try to expend my 3 bullets and then go into her other kit. Sometimes, you know, you got to change it a little bit depending upon what's happening in the fight, but that's a good way to do it. So you'll reload while using your other aspects of your kit. So back to the M1 though, what you want to do is you want to try to be in that sweet spot always. You want to try to be in a position where you can do the full damage and they can't to you. This works most best, that's really good English, with melee. So melee won't be able to attack you in this range, so if you can try to keep this range, and you'll easily do 16 damage to them. It gets a little bit harder with ranged about trying to trade, but basically you just want to put out damage when you can. So let's move over down to rockets. So I'm going to put the no cooldowns back on. So she has it's called a bunch of letters in Rocket. I just call it, or Rocket X67, I just call it Rocket. Basically what it does is it does an AoE damage. As you see, if I land over here, it does 12 damage in AoE. However, if I hit somebody directly with the rocket, it does 24, which is pretty significant damage. And it also has a slight pushback, which can be really good. Now, on top of that, if we were to use her space, which is called jetpack, right? I couldn't remember what it's called. You'll see jetpack comes and it will lay oil on people. So if I hit somebody with the rocket, it'll put a slight burn effect on them that actually does pretty significant damage. Now remember, damage over time cannot kill people, but it can help you continue to put out some decent damage. So her next skill, Jetpack, which we just showed you, is a pretty significantly long-ranged leap. It can then put oil on people, and oil will help them take more damage from certain skills. Those skills being your M2 and your EXM1, and we'll cover the EXM1 later. But it's really your get out of jail free card, and it's very important for you to use wisely because it can be difficult for her to survive when her space is down because she can be targeted easily. Which transitions us into her Q, which is her shield. I think it's called Zap. Yes, it's called Zap. And Zap is, like I said, it's a shield. So you cast it, you put it on yourself. It actually increases your movement speed and absorbs amount of damage. Now, anybody you put that on, it will increase their movement speed. I want to see if I come over here, if I put it on. Oh, this guy is an enemy. Dang, I was hoping that guy wasn't. So yeah, we actually won't be able to see that when you put it on somebody else, but when you put it on yourself, it does increase your movement speed, as you can see, which can be pretty significant, especially if you have like a croak or something who's having a hard time getting in range of somebody who they want to in-cap or they want to stun. You can throw the shield on them, get them there, and they'll get the stun. So The main thing though is with Eva, to be honest, and sounds really selfish, but I mainly play Eva in a way where I'm gonna try to keep me alive and do the best I can with my stuff, just because most people don't play with Eva and I don't think they understand how to play with Eva. Now that being said, I definitely throw my shield on my teammates when they're getting in a very sticky situation and need it. Because the other thing that's really nice about her shield is that her shield takes off any status effect. So just like Pearl's bubble, you end up throwing the shield onto somebody and it's going to prevent them from taking tons of damage because they're incapped, etc., whatever it is. So next is Taser. So Taser is an interesting skill, and we're going to have to come over here to this guy to show it to you. So if somebody is channeling a spell, what it's going to do is interrupt that spell and stun them. So, oh, whoops, and I missed like a noob. Okay. So as you see there, he tried to cast and he gets stunned. So that is basically what it does. And it's a somewhat short stun. It's about 1.2 seconds. It's not super long. It's not, not super long. It's not super short. And so it can be good to use. What I really like to do is I'll hit somebody, and usually, unless you're really, really far away, excuse me, unless you're really, really far away, you have enough time to stun them and then hit them. And so it is a spell block, not a stun. I gotta say that. So it's a spell block, so make sure that your spell block hits. So then boom, and then immediately into an M2, and you can usually get that off, and it's pretty good damage. Now, like I said, what I like to do with Eva is I play her where I trade my M1s, I put all 3 shots in there, and then now because of that, I'm going to interrupt you, I'm going to hit you with my rocket, and then I'm going to go on. I might reposition, I might just go back to M1 trading, depending upon where we're at, etc. And that's how I like to play Eva. Next is her tractor beam. Her tractor beam is a really powerful tool, especially in 3v3. Her tractor beam is really, really awesome. So her tractor beam is just what it sounds like. It's a tractor beam. So as you see, it pulls all 3 people in here. Now, one thing to note is that the animation stays slightly longer than the actual effect. Why is this important? This is important because she has, you cannot use escape abilities while in her tractor beam. So they cannot use their space to get out, etc. So it's really easy to set up damage. Now, the reason that it's important to realize that the effect doesn't last nearly as long as the showing of the effect is because it'll look like they leap out because the effect is still going, but like the effect has ended. So, like, the image will still be going, but the effect ended, so they'll be able to leap out. But during the main time, during the pull, because as you can see, they kind of stop moving, they slow down, that's when they're going to be able to use it again. So while they're just sitting there getting pulled, it is going to not allow them to use their escapes. And the other thing with this, though, too, is that you'll see you get a front shield that it negates all melee and projectiles. And this is important because this can be a great way to save yourself if you know you're about to get ulted by, or sniped or ulted by Jade. You can use this and it'll negate those projectiles, and it might be just enough time for you to get your space or your Q back up on cooldown to give you additional protection or to avoid the incoming damage. So be sure to use this in a way that helps protect you, but also in a way that doesn't allow that really slippery melee or ranged or whoever it is to get away from your team. So on to EXs. So the first one is Flamethrower, and that's on your EXM1. It's one of, I think, 2 skills, 2, maybe 3 skills that costs 50 energy, and it is so, so good. So it's a cone damage, and what that means is that it is not a projectile, it is not a melee. So because of that, it will not trigger counters, which is so important. So when you're on that Sirius and you're chasing him down, you're M1ing him, you're doing tons of damage, and you're just, wrecking his face, and then he's about to counter, oh, well, I just throw a Flamethrower, he ends up countering, and I toast him while he's countering. And it does pretty significant damage, as you can see. So the other thing that's really nice about it is this works with burning oil, or it works with oil, not burning oil. So you can go and then you hit him with your Flamethrower, and well, he didn't survive, but he would have gotten that dot damage that existed on your rocket. So really, really powerful tool. Need to incorporate it, especially since a lot of players have some type of cone or counter or barrier or anything, because it's going to go through Bulwark, it's going to go through Corruption on Rukan, it's going to go through the counters of Pearl and Sirius. So these are all people that you're probably encountering a lot in matchmaking. So make sure to start incorporating this flamethrower into your gameplay. Again, you want to learn the timings of those skills so that way you can drop it in there, continue doing damage, and they're just going to sit there and take damage, and they're not going to be dealing any damage back. It's really wonderful. So the next one is called Concussion Shot. And to be honest, I don't use Concussion Shot a lot. I'm trying to figure out if I should start incorporating it or not. So basically what it is, though, is it does a small amount of damage, it does 10 damage, and it incapacitates. The incapacitate is actually pretty significant in duration. However, the reason I don't use it is because I think that Flamethrower is so strong that I end up using most of my energy on Flamethrower. And if I'm using this to get like a range interrupt, if somebody's channeling something, my normal E is going to do it anyways. And the 10 damage to me is pretty insignificant. And so I'd much rather just do that, interrupt what they're doing, and then go back to DPSing or set up bigger damage, or just do the E into the R, which will end up being 24 damage on them. So I'm kind of meh about the concussive shot, but I think it might have its place here and there, especially if you're trying to set up some CC chains with your teammate. But as an individual, I don't think it's very strong. And then last but not least is the ultimate. I think it's called Machine Gun. It is called Machine Gun, and it can do a ton of damage. I think it ends up doing 140 damage, which is really, really, really insane to me. And so it's a channeling skill. It has very long range. And so as you can see, all the way from here, I'm able to hit that middle orb. And it pierces enemies, does about 7 damage per bullet, and sends out a lot of bullets. It's really good. But like I said, the flamethrower is so strong. I don't know how often you're going to want to work in your I don't know how often you're going to want to actually work in your ultimate, because flamethrower is so good, especially if you're going up against like a Bako Sirius. Again, anyone that has any type of negation, you're going to want to flamethrower through that. So let's talk quickly about combos. So combos with her, like I said, the way I like to play her is I'll come in and I'm going to hit with my 3 auto attacks, 2, 3, and then I'm going to try to interrupt you, and I'm going to try to missile you. And that is really the core part of my gameplay. The other thing I might do is I'm going to trade with you, you're now trading with me, I use my shield to be able to move a little bit faster, and I'm going to continue trading with you. If you are not taking the pressure from the person, you're not going to have to use your interrupt to really worry about that. And that's where I would mainly wait then and just keep putting pressure. If they then turn on you, then you're going to want to use your interrupt and then into your M2. Now, one thing I will do is I will, put into them, when you have an Eva on your face and you start putting in high pressure on them, you're going to notice that they're going to leap away. So when they leap away, that is when, again, I'm going to try to hit my E or just go right into my M2 where I think they're going to land, do the damage, and then leap onto them and try to do the damage again. Eva's not super combo oriented. She is just constant damage oriented. You want to always be sitting on someone's face. You want to always be in that range where you're hitting 16 damage, 12, 16 damage. You want to hit at least 3 of the bullets, and you want to be in a position where you're really able to put some hurt on them. So let's go into Battlerites now, because again, like I said, she's not super combo oriented. She's just straight out damage oriented. I see a lot of people in the Battlerite community getting U-turn. I think this is one of the worst things you can pick up with her. What it allows you to do is to leap back to your previous position, but what it does is it basically is saying, hey enemy team, I'm going to a location, you know exactly where I'm going to be, use your big damage on me. Not only that, but you're going to end up using your space offensively to try to do some damage and then come back. I think it's a little gimmicky and it is not worth it. What I think is best is Conductor, which allows your taser to bounce. And as your taser bounces, it is going to, excuse me, as your taser bounces, it's going to cause more disruption, and I just think it's better for your team in general. I think Blast Shield does have a place which will allow your Q to have a pretty significant knockback on it, actually. It knocks them pretty far back if you're going to be taking tons of heavy melee pressure and you want to be able to save your team or yourself. But I would default to Conductor and then pick up Blast Shield situationally. Next is a second charge of your right click, so a second rocket. Rocket boosters, which is jetpack, increases movement speed, and then durability shield is your shield can absorb more damage. Now, I think that there's places for all 3 of these, but in my opinion, I think Rocket Boosters is the strongest, mainly because you're going to get that movement speed when you use your space, and you're going to be able to M1 trade a little bit better because it's going to be easier for you to avoid their attacks, and it's going to be able to keep you in that zone a little bit easier against melees if that melee continue to chases you, and so you'll be able to M1 them more consistently. Next is Hyperspeed, which Zap increases your boomstick attack speed by 25%. The successful taser interrupts will heal you, and then Heavy Rocket will give a fading snare. So that's your M2 again. So I actually think, again, all three of these have a position. I do think that Hyperspeed is probably the weakest of the three, just because when you are attacking a little bit faster, you're just having to reload a little bit quicker. And I think if you're naturally weaving in some of your auto attacks, etc., I mean your other skills, etc., in the gaps of you having to reload, it's going to just make you have to do that faster, and sometimes your cooldowns aren't going to be available because of that. So I often get the heal because I don't have a healer, or if I do have a healer that I know I'm going to be able to trust, I will get the fading snare to help, especially if I see that my other team is the ones taking a lot of the pressure. That way, when I'm using my M2 on them, it's going to help peel for them a little bit. So I really think that these two are the strongest, and you got to kind of figure out what you're doing in that fight. So next is Grunge. If you're able to get oil on people, it'll give them a 75% reduced vision. The next is Extra Shell, meaning you'll have a fourth ammo in your M1 attack. And then Aegis, which is you take less damage. Now, I would consider the two on the right to be the strongest. I know a lot of people get the Grunge, especially when they get U-turn. I definitely don't think you should get U-turn, so I don't think you should get Grunge just because you're going to do that. I will get Grunge when I'm going up against two ranged because I want to limit their ability to do damage. But I will get Extra Shell when it's a little bit more of an even matchup because I want to be able to put out more damage with my M1s. And so I think it's going to be between these, but I often end up getting the extra auto attack because that extra 16 damage can be pretty significant. So now on to the ultimate stability. It grants you a shield which absorbs damage, or Big Bertha, which sends out a rocket, which is your M2 at the end of your ultimate. Now, if you aren't worried about getting in-capped or getting your ultimate stopped and you have good opportunities to use your ultimate throughout the match, I would consider getting this one. However, I would say that the shield can also be very good if you're going to be taking high pressure or you know that you're going to need a little bit of help surviving. To be honest, though, I think that her flamethrower is much stronger, and I would much rather see you using your flamethrower than having to use one of these to survive. So because of that, I would likely say just get the shield, because the shield, in case you end up using it, it's going to give you a little bit more survivability and go back into it. So that is how I would build Eva as you're playing. And that's basically it, guys. So let me know how this worked out. Let me know if this helped your Eva play at all. I think she's one of the funnest champions there is, but she can be very difficult because she has that dead zone. Not the dead zone, but she has that zone where you really need to get into to maximize her damage. So I hope this ends up helping you understand how to play her a little bit more. She's a lot of fun once you put some time into her. She's totally worth doing it, and she's really good in 3v3s. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please smash that like button and make sure to subscribe for more Battlerite content. And I'm also looking at some other games to possibly start doing videos for, so keep an eye on that too. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.